Welcome to the Ask Lee segment of my channel, and if you have any questions regarding magic, spirituality, witchcraft, demonolatry, the occult, whatever it may be, then all you have to do is drop it into the comments of any of the Ask Lee videos and I will add it to the queue. And I do these every Wednesday, so just look out for your questions. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Alright, straight into today's questions then. First one is from @Lirach666. Hey Lee, what experience do you have in using deliberate actions as an offering to entities like a devotion ritual? These can actually be really good ways to make offerings, and what we're talking about here, for anybody who's not sure what this means, we usually talk about offerings being foodstuffs or drinks like wine, ale, coffee, tea, water. So it's usually food or drink. We can also offer money, jewelry. There's a lot of things we can give as offerings, and sometimes the spirits have some rather unusual requests. But doing something which is a deliberate action. Now, to my mind, what that means is doing some kind of service. This can come in a variety of different forms. A very good way to do this is to do something like charity work, work at a soup kitchen. Any kind of charity work that helps the community itself, which that's absolutely excellent. It helps the community, and you can do it as a dedication or a devotion to the spirit that you're working with. Some other forms would be a particular area of study in order to advance your knowledge. So for spirits such as Lucifer, mercurial spirits, which are related to the intelligence, knowledge, gaining skills and things like that, those can be devoted to those types of spirits. You can do artwork, any kind of arts or crafts, whether it be painting, drawing, pottery, sculpting, anything like that can be done as an offering. So, offerings don't just have to be food and drink. They can be many things which are dedicated as a devotion to the spirits you're working with. So, they can be excellent offerings. So yeah, I would definitely recommend having a look into that if you haven't considered it yet. But brilliant way to go about it. Okay, next question is from @Allison4580. I am planning to learn more about demonology and write down information in my journal. What sort of topics should I start with? This is actually two questions here, so I'm going to start with that. First thing there is it's not a dig or anything like that, but just have a look at terminology, because we have the word demonology, which usually refers to the study of demons, and what you'll find is that most people who are demonologists are based in Christianity, and their study of demons is usually one which isn't portrayed very kindly. So that's why we have terminology such as demonolator and demonolatry or demonosophy, and things like that, because they kind of break away from that old, outdated way of looking at working with demons. So instead of, I think every demonolator and every demonosophist would be a demonologist in some regard, because when you're working with demons or worshipping demons, depending on what your view is and how you're going about things, we do also obviously need to study the demons. So we have demonology in there, but somebody who is a demonologist is usually just somebody who's studying them, and as I said, it usually comes from that background which is quite unkind to demons themselves. So just bear that in mind in terms of terminology. And just, I did do a video not too long back which has a look at the different words, demonology, demonolatry, and demonosophy, and how they're kind of viewed and broken down. But to give it a very basic understanding, demonology is the study of demons, demonolatry is the worship of demons, and demonosophy is working with, they use the term as in walking beside or working with the demons. I don't think there's any difference between demonolatry and demonosophy, simply because the idea of worship has been misunderstood, and I think that's why they broke away from demonolatry being the worship of, and created demonosophy. But I don't think there's any difference, because worship simply means to honor and to work with a particular entity or a thing which you consider to be worthy of that station that they hold. That's really what it is. It's not bowing down and getting down on your knees and supplicating and things like that. That's not what worship is. Prayer and worship can take those forms, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a very old form, going way back beyond Christianity. People did supplicate themselves to the gods, and that's quite acceptable. It seems that people are trying to break away from that because of the implications that it has within Christianity, which I think is just quite sad, really. Because, why I say it's sad is because, it's kind of showing that Christianity still has a hold on those practices, and it shouldn't. As I said, these are older practices, long before Christianity came about or was even conceived or thought of. But because it gets associated with Christianity, people are trying to break away from it because it holds that negative response for them. But that just indicates that Christianity still has a hold and a control. And that's what we all need to break away from, is that control, that hold that Christianity has, not the actual practices themselves. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent and rambling. What sort of topics should I start with? Any magical practice, any magical path, any spiritual path, whether it is demonolatry, whether it is witchcraft, whether it is chaos magic, whatever it is, you should focus first on meditation, concentration and visualization, which go into the realm of meditation, and then banishing rites, and banishing rites in the sense of elevating your own frequency, and things like offerings. If you're going to go with the spirit model, you are going to be worshipping or working with particular gods, goddesses, demons, angels, spirits, etc., etc. Then you want to have a look at offerings, and also very important is protection and cleansing. Those are the things you want to start with in any kind of magical practice. And then from there you can go on. You can have a look at particular spirits, and you can study those spirits and study how to work with them, how to contact them, how to go into trance. Because you'll find that with those basic foundations, with meditation, banishings, protection and cleansing, and as I said, if you're working with a spirit model, offerings to particular spirits, you'll find that, especially with meditation, you'll start working into or moving into working with trance states. Through the trance states, you can then access various different modes of magic and working, and it just goes on from there. So start with those things, and move on from there with that. Okay, so the second part of this was also, what are your opinions regarding horror movies about demons, demon possession, etc.? Do you think they give demons a bad reputation? I do. I think they give, because when we look at such movies, they're all from a Christian worldview, and I'm busy watching season 2 of Good Omens, and even that's from a Christian worldview, but it doesn't have that Christian bias. But what you find is most of the movies and TV series do come from a Christian bias, which paint demons as being evil and trying to take over your soul and trying to destroy the world and all such things. And that gives demons a bad reputation. It gives magic, occultism itself, a bad reputation. But it's simply because it comes from a Christian worldview and a Christian bias. So I don't particularly... I enjoy movies. I enjoy watching horror movies, just for the entertainment value. But I would take anything that's in a movie with a grain of salt. Occasionally we do find a movie which has some good... there's been some good, excellent, study into the actual practices, the occult practices themselves. But overall, it's fantasy, it's fiction. So just remember that when you're watching them. Enjoy it for the entertainment value, but don't try and think you'll be able to learn anything from them. Having said that, when you know what you're looking for, when you're watching a movie and well, that's rubbish, that's got some truth in it, and etc., etc., what you can do is take some aspects from particular movies and bring them into your own practice. And I mean, the one that comes to mind is The Matrix. There are so many things in The Matrix that you can actually pull out of it, imagery, dropping into the corridor, for instance. The corridor itself, these doors that lead off into different spaces of the Matrix. All of this kind of symbolism you can bring into your own practice, and bring and make them part of what you're doing. So you can take things out of movies and make it your own, but the symbolism itself. But don't think that the movie is going to reveal anything about any true information about magic, occultism, demons, spirits, the gods and the goddesses, and things like that. So yeah, all right. Let me try and go back. There we go. Next question is from Ivy Lee Ivana. Could you please speak about your personal experiences with Lucifer, if you haven't already, that is? He reminds me somewhat of the HGA in a sense of personal growth and development. Thanks. Okay. All right. My own personal experience with Lucifer. Now, bear in mind, I do come from a traditional witchcraft background. It all kind of developed roughly in the way of I came into Neo-Wicca, which led me into traditional witchcraft, and at some point along that path, I got interested in the left-hand path. So chaos magic, Satanism, and all such things. But from a traditional witchcraft point of view, there is a Luciferian approach and a Luciferian following. It's very different to something like Michael Ford, but Lucifer is the light bringer, the bringer of gnosis, the bringer of knowledge. Lucifer is the horned man with the flame betwixt the horns. The flame betwixt the horns is the gnosis, the knowledge, and the horns are the left and the right, the balance between the two. It's often represented as the horned man with a child atop the shoulders, and the child is the bringer of the knowledge. But my own experience has been from that perspective of the horned man that illuminates the path. It then later develops into, it's the same but slightly different. When I first started working with the aspect of Lucifer, and I don't consider Lucifer to be a particular individual entity. Lucifer is a representation of Lightbringer. So there are many Lucifers, okay? Whether we give, it depends if you're working in a particular tradition. It could be Lu, for instance, if you are working Celtic tradition. Therefore, if you work in a particular tradition, that Lucifer, that Lightbringer, that bringer of gnosis, the illuminator of the path, will probably have a particular title or a particular name. But we can also look at this from a broader perspective of Lucifer being the Lightbringers. I'm going to bit off track where I was going with this now. But that development that happened in my own practice was that Lucifer appeared to me as masculine. He was the horned god. As things developed, Lucifer became feminine for me. And this, I think, has a great relationship to what Lucifer actually is. And the flame betwixt the horns, the balance of the two aspects, the two sides, the opposing forces that come into balance and bring the knowledge, bring the flame. The masculine and the feminine becoming the androgynous being. And Lucifer is known to be a shapeshifter. So, going from being masculine to feminine to being neither is quite an apparent thing with Lucifer. And many of the other gods and goddesses and all of the spirits, really. They don't actually have gender. We assign them gender. They may come to us as a particular gender in order for us to interact with them more comfortably. But these are spirits. They are entities. They are balls of energy, which hold a particular aspect, a particular office, a particular intent. Anyway, okay. So that's my personal experience. He reminds me somewhat of the HGA. I can totally see that. I've actually seen a lot of people mention this recently also, is that Lucifer is the higher self. And although I wouldn't consider... this is where things get a bit complicated. Although I wouldn't consider Lucifer as an entity or a representation of a body of entities to be your holy guardian angel or your higher self, the holy guardian angel itself is a bringer of knowledge, is a guide, is a guardian. So we could consider the HGA to be a Lucifer, but not one of these gods, goddesses, demons, one of these entities which are the light bringers, which we work with, which we worship, which we consider to be a god, a deity of some sort. The HGA is part of our own soul. At the same time, it is separate from our soul. It's a connection between ourselves and divinity. So it's completely independent of that classification of deity, divine intelligence, divine being. It is a divine being. I think you know what I'm getting at. What I'm trying to say is we can classify all of these beings, all of these entities, the gods or goddesses, the demons, the angels, etc., 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 over here. It's a very bad idea to put them over here, but for representation, for explanation purposes, we're going to put them over here, okay? Then we have our own self, our own soul, and that's made up of various parts. Depending on what tradition you're looking at. Again, it could be 3 parts, it could be 11 parts, it could be 4, 5, 6 parts. But however we look at it personally, we have our soul. So I'm going to call it the lower, middle, and upper or higher selves or souls, those 3 soul parts. So when we get to the higher self, the holy guardian angel, it is part of ourself, our own soul, but what it does, it connects us with divinity, okay, which we can then bring back all of the gods and goddesses and put them in there, but it isn't part of that division or that category of divine gods and goddesses. So it's almost like the connecting point. Okay, but yes, the holy guardian angel I would consider to be a form of a light bringer, a form of or is a Lucifer in the aspect of bringing the knowledge, illuminating the path, guiding us, and things like that. And yeah, so I think that's where that would come in. All right. I'm going to leave the questions there for today, and just have a look next week. There's a long one from, I'm trying to see the name here. A long one from Tilla MCE. Okay. So I'll discuss that next week and some others. And right, so I'll see you then. Have a good one for now. Bye bye.